you mute yourself. Is this your first lesson, Namiga Day? Okay, we've had these lessons many times, so make sure you mute yourself. You only unmute if you want, if you're sharing. If you're talking to us, I remember Barbara, mute yourself.
Yeah.
We don't
I
want to hear what. Sorry?
I didn't hear the page. Which page from the home study book?
Page 33. Page 33. And then someone is saying, what if we had covered fungi? I think the first thing I did was to inquire where you people had stopped. And it's only the only people that I had sharing were saying they had just finished the Spirogyra. And then, so, yes, Mukenya?
Teacher, I had a miscommunication. We had actually started fungi or fungi. Yeah.
You had started, but you hadn't looked at economic importance. Did you also look at economic importance examples? Economic importance?
You told us to go and make the research, so I think people must have written down. Okay, I personally read that, but I didn't know about other people.
Teacher, for Central, we had done the economic importance, and we had even drawn some, like the bread mold, and then we did like some exercise. We did it as a class.
Teacher, some of us had not yet done anything.
No, you can't say anything. Anything means you hadn't started on biology. You just say for us we were still looking at this, but you don't say for us we hadn't done anything.
Teacher, our members were still on Kingdom Monera.
The worst members were on Monera.
Yes.
On Monera. Someone says the book doesn't have page 33. How come the one I have here has page 33? Which book are you using?
23.
Which books are those? You don't have the learner's guide.
We have home study learning.
And I'm not talking about a home study. Home study only has bits. You see, home study has many subjects. Home study has biology, it has chemistry, it has, so they only got a part of biology, a part of chemistry, and that was meant to be used at home. So you're supposed to have a complete book. Mr. Namdara shared, I think, those books, all the subjects on your WhatsApp group. So it's those books that I'm talking about, the ones that have a blue cover. Those are the ones I'm talking about. Okay, so page 33 is actually there. Now, there's a bit of a challenge here. I've just had some people were still looking at Monera, and the south and central, we were actually completing fungi. We had completed fungi because we had looked at economic importance of the fungi. We had done that. And that means in those two streams, we were moving to the next kingdom, which was kingdom plant, the plants. Because I don't want to take those people that covered, because we can't go back to Monera. That would mean going to Protista again and then fungi. So what we are going to do is, we are going to start with kingdom plant, the plants. Yeah, we are going to start with the plants for now. Those that may be behind, because some are on Monera, some are on Protista, I think I'll now request you to read through that work, Monera, Protista, and fungi. Read through, and if there's something that's not clear, we have the WhatsApp group. You can always raise your concerns, and then I'll be able to help you. But for now, we are going to continue with kingdom plant. That would be our fourth kingdom. Monera, Protoctista, fungi, and now plant. The organisms called plants are not new to us. I believe every one of us has seen plants, has interacted with plants. So what do we know about the plants? Anything? What do we know about the plants? Anything you know about the plants?
Yes, teacher. Majority of
Yes.
plants have a green pigment called chlorophyll, but not all.
Majority of the plants have a green pigment called chlorophyll. Good. And what do they use that green pigment for? And where is it found specifically?
It's found in the leaves and it is used in a process called photosynthesis.
Okay, so plants have a good, thank you. Plants have a green pigment. That green pigment is called chlorophyll. It is found mostly in the leaves. I'm saying mostly because I've also seen some other plant structures that are green in color. I don't know whether you've also noticed that one. In some plants, it's not only the leaves that are green in color. So that green pigment is found mainly in the leaves, but it could also be found in other structures. For example, you'll give me the examples. And then she says that green pigment is important in the process of photosynthesis. She also says in the process of photosynthesis, the plants are able to manufacture their own food. In the when we're starting the course, I think we looked at feeding, nutrition. We actually said nutrition is one of the 7 main characteristics of the living things. We said broadly we have 2 types of nutrition. Do we still remember those 2 types of nutrition?
Yes, heterotrophic
Yes.
and what? Autotrophic.
Okay, very good. We had autotrophic nutrition, autotrophic nutrition, and heterotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic and heterotrophic nutrition. Given that the plants have the green pigment chlorophyll and they are able to manufacture their own food, in which type of nutrition would you place the green plants? Which type of nutrition is shown by the green plants? Yes, Mokenya?
Autotrophic. They make their
Sorry,
own food.
again? Again?
Autotrophic.
Okay, very good. The plants are autotrophic. So any organism that is able to manufacture its own food is said to be autotrophic. So the plants are autotrophic. They are able to manufacture their own food using simple materials that they obtain from their surroundings. Specifically, they obtain water from the soil and then obtain carbon dioxide from the air, if you're looking at the plants that we have around us. But we shouldn't forget we also have plants that live in water. But using the plants that we have around us, carbon dioxide is from the air, water is from the soil, and then those two are somehow put together using sunlight energy. And that sunlight energy is obtained from the sun. And then the plants are able to produce their own food. So we say they are autotrophic. That is good. That is good. Anything else we know about the plants? They have chlorophyll. Yes, Paula?
Plants, I have not understood how plants get how plants use heterotrophic. I've only understood autotrophic.
No. Okay, good question there. Paula, Plants, we've not said plants are both auto and hetero. I hope you get this clearly. We are not saying plants are both. I simply said there are two types of nutrition shown by different organisms, both plants and animals. We said auto and hetero. Of the two, plants show autotrophic nutrition. So plants are not hetero, Mukoda. Plants are auto. Plants are auto. The green plants are autotrophic. Okay, yes, Navidye? Agnes?
Sure. Plants are eukaryotes.
Plants are eukaryotes, okay? Plants are eukaryotes, that is good. Plants are eukaryotes, but then now you're using a complicated term there. Some of us don't know what it means. Plants are eukaryotes. What do you mean by plants are eukaryotes? Agnes, is there any way of making it any
Okay.
simpler?
Carry.
Yes, yes, Agnes? Agnes, not yet very sure. I wish you could simplify that complex term. Plants are eukaryotes, true, but then, yes?
Yes. These are organisms whose cells have a nucleus enclosed within a nucleus envelope.
Okay, that is very good. That is very correct. Eukaryotes are organisms that have a nucleus enclosed by a nuclear membrane, or that have their genetic material enclosed by a nuclear membrane. So plants are eukaryotes. That is very good. Another person giving us what they know about the green plants, about the plants. Yes, Bukenya?
That plants are grouped into smaller categories. Let me put it like that. Yeah, they are like further divided.
The kingdom is further divided. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because of they are
Okay.
the flowers and the non-flowering plants.
Okay, good. The kingdom plant is further divided. And from the classification, the taxonomy that we started with, we said there are 7 main levels of classification: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Some people have a way, mnemonics, a way of remembering those things. Some people use the saying that goes, kings play chess on fine golden stools. Something like that. They use that one to remember kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and then the species. So from the kingdom, we said we now have the phyla. What Bukenya is saying, that kingdom plant is further divided into phyla. However, specifically for the plant kingdom, the phyla will be called divisions. In other words, Bukenya is saying kingdom plant is further divided into divisions. We shall look at those divisions. Those divisions are 3 for our classification. We shall be talking about 3 divisions. Good. Owinyi, Marilyn.
Plants have two systems, the shoot and the root system.
Plants have 2 systems, the root system and the shoot system. Good. Anything else about the plants? Eukaryotic, they have chlorophyll. Yes,
They
Akidi?
absorb plants use carbon dioxide during night.
Plants Akidi, we did get that. Could you say it again? Plants do what, Akidi?
Plants use carbon dioxide during the day and oxygen during the night.
Use carbon dioxide day and oxygen during the night. Now, but for now, we may not take that one to be entirely correct. Plants use oxygen whether it is day or night. Plants use oxygen whether it is day or night. Do you know why? We said plants are living things. And one of the 7 main characteristics of the living things, we said, living things respire. And respiration, we said, is the oxidation or breakdown of food to release energy. All living things break down food to produce energy. They need energy for a number of things. Right now I'm talking, I can't talk without energy. Right now I'm standing, I can't stand without energy. Right now your heart is pumping, your heart can't pump without energy. Right now you're seeing, you cannot see without energy. Now, whatever I've mentioned, the plants may not do. They don't move, they don't talk, they don't, However, there are also activities or processes within the plants that use energy. So whether you're looking at a plant or you're looking at an animal or you're looking at bacteria, as long as what you're looking at is living, that thing must be respiring, producing energy. The breakdown of food to release energy, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes uses up oxygen. In the plants, respiration takes place. That respiration uses oxygen, whether it is day or night. And because of that, it is not entirely true to say, or entirely correct to say, that the plants use oxygen during the day. They also use the oxygen during the night. Probably what may be right is that the plants use carbon dioxide during the day. Why do they use carbon dioxide during the day? They use carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, and that process requires sunlight energy. So in the night, the sun is not there, so the sunlight energy is not there. So it's true that in the night, the plants do not use carbon dioxide. For now, we can say, in the night, the plants don't use the carbon dioxide. Yes, Nyamaizi. Nyamaizi?
Teacher, I'm requesting to repeat for me the term used to genetic cells are covered by a membrane.
Oh, when the genetic material of a cell is enclosed by a nuclear membrane, that cell is said to be eukaryotic. That cell is said to be eukaryotic. Or we can say the organism is a eukaryote, as opposed to organisms whose nucleus doesn't have, as opposed to organisms whose nucleus doesn't have, whose genetic material isn't enclosed by a nuclear membrane. So if the genetic material is not enclosed, the organism is a prokaryote. For example, bacteria. If the nucleus is enclosed, the organism is a eukaryote. An example of a eukaryote is the plants. And maybe to make it much simpler, it is only organisms in kingdom Monera. I repeat, it is only organisms in kingdom Monera that are prokaryotes. Organisms in the rest of the kingdoms, the 4 kingdoms, because we said there are 5 kingdoms. So if you take away Monera, you would be left with 4. Organisms in the remaining 4 kingdoms are eukaryotic, and that is where the plants are as well. Okay, yes, Marilyn, The hand is up.
Plants are plants absorb water through a process called osmosis.
Plants absorb water through a process that we call osmosis. That is actually true. That is true, but it is not one of the characteristics of the plants. But it is true that plants absorb water from the soil by osmosis. Okay, I think we can take those few characteristics. Maybe something you didn't mention, which is very important, is plants are multicellular. Plants are multicellular. So the plants, this kingdom here, compared to compared to Monera, compared to Protoctista, the organisms in kingdom planting are all multicellular. When you look at Monera, Protoctista, and even fungi, Monera are all unicellular. Protoctista, majority are unicellular. And then when we go to fungi, majority are multicellular, but there are some like yeast that are unicellular. When we come to kingdom planting, all the organisms are multicellular. So kingdom planting is made up of entirely multicellular organisms. There isn't any unicellular organism. Then two, you've said this, the plants are eukaryotes. In other words, they are made up of cells that have the genetic material enclosed by a nuclear membrane. You've also said that the plants are made up of cells that have cell walls around them, or that have a cell wall. When we're looking at the cells, we said the cell wall in the plants is made up of a carbohydrate, and that carbohydrate is called cellulose. So plants have a cell wall made up of a carbohydrate called cellulose. Something that is also very important is plants store food within them, and they normally store the food in form of starch. And that is why you looked at the plant cell, and inside the plant cell, there's something that you labeled as the starch granules or the starch grains. Then lastly, plants are able to manufacture their own food by a process that we call photosynthesis. And because they are able to manufacture their own food, we can say plants are autotrophic. Those are some of the characteristics of the plants. Now, I think it was Bukenya that said that this kingdom is further divided, and this kingdom is further divided into 3 divisions. Don't forget, when I use divisions, I'm actually referring to phyla. But for this kingdom, the phyla, I don't know why, but the phyla for this kingdom are called divisions. You can probably find out why are they called divisions and not phyla. Yet for the rest of the kingdoms, the immediate division of a kingdom is a phylum. Yet here we are saying the immediate division of kingdom planted is a division. So kingdom planted is made up of 3 divisions. Those 3 divisions are, we can actually see them there. We have a division called Bryophyta. You can see the word Bryophytes. Just remove the ES. You would just remove the ES, replace that with an A. You would end up with Bryophyta. So we have division Bryophyta. We have division Pteridophyta. Pteridophyta is, you see the word Pteridophytes. Pteridophyte starts with a P, don't forget, but we don't pronounce the P, so we are just saying Pteridophyte. So Pteridophytes there, you remove the E and S at the end of Pteridophytes, replace that with an A, you would end up with Pteridophyta. And then we have division Spermatophyta. You can see Spermatophytes there. Just remove the ES at the end, replace that with an A, you would end up with Spermatophyta. So those are the three divisions that make up kingdom plant. I repeat, those are the three divisions that make up kingdom plant. The three divisions are division Bryophyta, division Pteridophyte, and then division Spermatophyte. Why is it important to divide or put the plants into separate divisions? We are going to look at some of the characteristics, but clearly, when you look at the variety, the diversity of plants around you, you'll notice that some of them seem to be very different. There are these very small plants that you find growing on the walls, that you find growing on isolated trenches. Those plants are very common. We call them the mosses. They are very common. I believe most of us have seen them, if not all of us. The good thing is we have an illustration. We have a picture there. So that picture is showing the mosses. Those mosses are very common. I believe we've all seen them. They're like those very small things you're seeing there, those green things on the wall. This looks like a wall. So these small things here, those are the mosses. Those things are very common. They are plants. Compare those plants to a mango tree. I think you can clearly see. If you sat here, you would actually be covering those mosses, all those mosses. That is just a small patch of the mosses. And what you're seeing there is actually very many. Because if I put just one moss plant at the tip of my finger, from where you are, you wouldn't actually be able to see. You wouldn't be able to see. Maybe you would see something, you would be able to tell I've placed something at the tip of my finger, but you wouldn't be able to clearly see what I've put there. That is a moss plant. Compare the size of that plant to the size of the mango tree that you have in your compound, at home or even at school. I think you can see that whereas the moss and the mango are both plants, they seem to be very different. Because of those very many differences, huge differences between the two, it is important to put them into different groups. I've used the moss and the mango plant as examples. Why have I used them? I want us to appreciate why it is important to divide a kingdom into divisions, smaller divisions. So we have division Bryophyta, division Pteridophyte, and division Spermatophyte. The Bryophytes have their own characteristics. The Pteridophytes have their own characteristics that make them different from the Bryophytes. The Spermatophytes too have their own characteristics that make them different from the Bryophytes and the Pteridophytes. But again, since they are both plants, not both, since they are all plants, the Bryo, the Pterido, and the Spermatophytes, since they are all plants, they must share some characteristics. The characteristics that we've just talked about, eukaryotes, multicellular, chlorophyll, those ones apply to all. But now we are going to look at some special. Why, what do the Bryophytes have? What do the Pteridophytes have? What do the Spermatophytes have? I'll start with the Bryophytes. The Bryophytes are the simplest plants. Simplest in terms of structure, and of course the smallest as well. I've just said if I got a moss plant and placed it at the tip of my finger here, from where you are, given the orientation of my finger, you wouldn't be able to see it. If I got a mango seed, whichever mango variety you're talking about, it won't even be supported by the tip of my finger. It will fall off, just a seed. It will fall off. That means the mango plant is very big. A mango plant is very big. So bryophytes are very simple in structure and also very small in size. Bryophytes do not have true TRUE. They do not have true stems, roots, or leaves, because I've said they have a simple plant structure. that simple plant structure lacks through stem, through roots, through leaves. They do have root-like structures. They do have leaf-like structures. But the fact I've said leaf-like clearly says they are not leaves. Fact that I've said root-like, I think it means they are not roots. So bryophytes don't have roots, they don't have a stem, and they do not have the leaves. Bryophytes are very small in size. And because they are very small in size, they do not need complex structures to transport materials around their body. When you look at your body, of course, theoretically, because you can't look inside your body, but I believe we all know that within our bodies, we have a system of tubes, a complex system of tubes. And that complex system of tubes transports blood around the body. And as blood is transported around the body, that complex system of tubes is transporting oxygen, transporting water, transporting food, transporting waste products, transporting hormones around the body. The complex, the higher plants, like the mango plant is very big. And because it is very big, it also, just like you do, needs a complex system of tubes that can efficiently transport different substances around the body. Without that complex system of tubes, there wouldn't be efficient transport of materials around the plant body. And the cells would lack those materials and they would end up dying. And they would end up dying. I think we know that if you cannot transport oxygen efficiently around the body, you would end up dying. Your brain cells need oxygen. If somehow your body fails to transport the oxygen as fast as it should to the brain cells will end up lacking oxygen, they'll stop functioning, and definitely the whole body will end up dying. Your heart cells need oxygen. If something happened and the supply of oxygen to the heart muscles somehow stopped or somehow reduced, you would be affected. We are saying the bigger plants need materials, efficient transport. That efficient transport requires a system of tubes. So the higher plants that we shall be seeing, like the mango plants, they have vesicular tissues within them. The word vesicular is there. They have vesicular tissues within them. Later on, I'll give the names of those vesicular tissues, but they need those vesicular tissues to efficiently transport materials around the body. The mosses, which are examples of the bryophytes, being very small, don't need that. They do not need the vesicular tissues. Why? The plant body is very small. So the distances over which the materials are transported are very short. So there's no need for a complex system to transport materials around the body. Okay, Bukenya, your hand was up. Bukenya?
I was just asking, like when you're talking about in case there's supply of oxygen to the brain, I was just going to ask, is that what causes fainting?
Yes, it would cause fainting because the brain is controlling, and if it is not getting enough oxygen, then it means control over the body would reduce, and because conscious control over the body has reduced, it can lead to fainting. Okay, I'm still looking at the bryophytes. For example, the mosses. Something else about the bryophytes is the bryophytes are normally found growing in damp places, DAMP. damp places. Their growth is a bit limited to those damp conditions. Why? When you look at the higher, the bigger and more complex plants, for example, I'll again use the mango tree. The surface of the mango tree, whether you're looking at a leaf, you're looking at a flower, you're looking at the surface is covered by a waterproof layer. That waterproof layer is made of wax. It is waxy. It is made up of chitin, something called chitin, C-U-T-I-N, made up of chitin. That layer is waterproof. And because that layer covering the plant body, that is a mango tree as an example, is waterproof, it means that somehow that plant, for example, the mango tree or mango plant, even if it is young, is able to reduce the evaporation of water into the atmosphere, from the plant and into the atmosphere. And because such a plant is able to minimize evaporation of water from the body, from its body, then that plant can survive in areas that are fairly dry. When we go to the bryophytes, for example, the mosses, the liverworts and the hornworts, those ones don't have that waterproof layer covering them. And because they don't have that waterproof layer around them, it means they are likely to lose a lot of water if they are growing in a dry place. And what are we saying? The bryophytes don't have a cuticle. They lack the waterproof waxy cuticle. They do not have the waxy waterproof cuticle. That limits them. It has an advantage and a disadvantage as well. The disadvantage is not having cuticle means the plant is prone to excessive evaporation of water, and that would lead to drying and dying, which is a disadvantage. But then the advantage it has is the plant is able to absorb water all over its entire body surface. The plant is able to absorb water all over its entire body surface. That is an advantage that comes with lacking a cuticle. But the disadvantage is excessive evaporation of water from the body. And because of the excessive evaporation of water, the plants can only do well in damp places. I've already said the bryophytes have a very simple plant structure, without roots, without leaves, without a stem. I've also said these plants are very small, and because they are very small, they do not need the vascular tissues. So they do not have the vascular tissues. Those are two different things. Someone might not have money, but then the person needs the money. Someone may not have money and they actually don't need the money. We are saying the bryophytes don't need and they do not have as well. Those are the bryophytes. From the bryophytes, we go to maybe one question about the bryophytes before I continue to the pteridophytes. Anyone with a question? Hannah, do you have a question about the pteridophyte? No, the bryophyte, sorry. Hannah is not there. Birungi Patricia, are you there? Patricia is also not there. Mungungeyo. Any question? Yes, Melissa.
So how do bryophytes reproduce?
How do they reproduce, the bryophytes? For simplicity, we are saying the bryophytes reproduce by means of spores. For simplicity, but as we call, and reproduction by means of spores is asexual, because we looked at two types of reproduction, asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction involves fusion of gametes, fusion of reproductive cells, that is sexual. Asexual reproduction doesn't involve fusion of gametes. And for these bryophytes, for simplicity, let us say they reproduce asexually by means of spores. Reproduce asexually by means of spores. That was good. I'll give a chance to just one more person to ask or say something, and then we continue. If there's nothing, we go to the pteridophytes. That picture there is showing us an example of a pteridophyte. That pteridophyte is called a fern, F-E-R-N. It is called a fern. That plant is actually common. It is common. I believe we've all seen those things, that plant. Have we seen that plant somewhere? Is it common?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So that plant is a fern, and it is an example of a pteridophyte. Oh, maybe before I continue with the pteridophyte, have we all seen the mosses? Have we all ever seen a moss physically?
No.
No. But when you looked at this photo here, when you looked at that photo, do you think you might know a place where you can get those?
Oh, yeah, I do.
You do. You can get it, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you get a chance to find something like that, look at it closely. When you look at it closely, you'll see a mass of green things, and then projecting out from the mass, you'll have things that look like that. And of course, this would be, say, the ground. If you get, have you seen what I've drawn on the board?
Yes,
Are you able
teacher.
to? Okay. So when you get a chance to see this structure here, this head is called a sporangium. Or you can call it a spore case. This one here contains spores.
Spores. Is it the one where when it dries and breaks, the spores come out?
Yes, the same. But we looked at something like that when we're looking at the fungi as well, the bread mold. Yes. But now we are saying these simple plants, the bryophytes, also have the sporangium. The sporangium contains spores, and when the sporangium dries, it breaks, and the spores are released. Why I've talked about that is because I think it was Patricia. She was asking how do they reproduce. So they reproduce by means of spores. Yes, Navidie?
Excuse me, teacher. When I searched for the diagram of a moss, it showed me that sporangium part, they call it a capsule.
They call it a capsule. That is very correct. That is okay. It is okay.
Oh, okay.
It is okay. We can call it the capsule, but that capsule contains spores. Okay. So now we are looking at a pteridophyte. We've already seen the fan is an example. You've also said you've seen those things somewhere. Now the pteridophytes are bigger, much bigger than the bryophytes, much bigger. And when you look at the pteridophyte, you're actually able to see a body that is made up of leaves, that is made up of roots, that is made up of a stem. So the very first characteristic of this organism we are giving, or of these organisms we are giving, is that they are made up of roots, stem, and roots. Unlike the bryophytes, another characteristic of these plants is, unlike the bryophytes that don't have a cuticle, the waxy waterproof layer, the cuticle on their surface, these pteridophytes have the cuticle. For them, they have a cuticle. And because they have a cuticle, it means for them they can grow in areas that are fairly warm, areas that are fairly dry. They are able to reduce the rate of evaporation of water from the body. Another characteristic of the pteridophytes is, because I've said for them they are big, I actually can't hold the pteridophyte on my one finger. If I wanted to hold the pteridophyte, sorry, I would use my whole palm. That means that these organisms are big. And because the organisms are big, it means they need a complex system of tissues that can transport different materials around the body. We've already said those tissues can be called vesicular tissues. So we are saying the pteridophytes have vesicular tissues. Those vesicular tissues are actually two. One of them is called the xylem tissue. One of them is called the xylem. And the xylem is written like that. And the other is called the phloem. So the pteridophytes have vesicular tissues, i.e. xylem and phloem. What does the xylem do? What does the phloem do? The xylem transports water and mineral salts, or transports water and dissolved mineral salts from the roots to the leaves. Why am I saying from the roots to the leaves? Because it is the roots that are in contact with the ground and the water is absorbed from the soil. Why am I saying to the leaves? Isn't water transported to the stem as well? The fact is, water is also transported to the stem. I'm saying to the leaves because when you look at a plant, the leaves seem to be farthest from the roots. Otherwise, we could generally just say the xylem is transporting water and dissolved mineral salts from the roots to the rest of the parts of the plant. Then we've also said it has the phloem. The phloem is important in conducting the food that is produced by the leaves to the roots. Why to the roots? The roots are also made up of living cells, so they need the food. Why to the roots? Some roots store food, like cassava. You eat cassava, and those roots are actually storing. Pardon on?
The function of the phloem.
The phloem conducts manufactured food from the leaves to the roots, or from the leaves to other parts of the plant. Xylem transports water and salts from the roots to other parts of the plant. Phloem conducts manufactured food from the leaves to the other parts of the plant. So we are saying that pteridophytes need, and they do have, the vesicular tissues. That is to say, the xylem for transporting water, the phloem for transporting manufactured food. How do they reproduce? Who has ever examined the leaf of a pteridophyte, the leaf of a fern, a mature fern. Has anyone ever taken interest to look at, closely examine the leaf of a fern? Anyone that has ever gotten time, got the leaf of the fern and looked at it at close range? Anyone?
I tried.
You tried.
Yeah,
Did you also look at the lower surface of the leaf? Could you have looked at the lower surface of the leaf?
I think so.
Did you see patches that looked like brown? They are like swellings. They could have been brown. They could have been
Yes,
orange.
I saw it
Okay.
was a bit brown.
Okay. So if you've seen those ones, those structures contain spores.
Oh,
Those structures under the leaf. They are like
yes.
swellings.
Uh,
If they've just formed, they will be orange in color, and then they dry and they become brown. Those structures contain spores. They're
so
actually
does it mean
called.
so
Does
does
it
it mean they
mean?
are asexually? So does that mean they reproduce asexually?
Yes, they reproduce asexually by means
By
of
means
spores
of spores.
as well. And those collections, those masses that you saw attached to the lower surface of the leaf, they are called sori. One of them is called a sorus, S-O-R-U-S. Many of them are called sori. So a mature leaf, and by the way, the leaf of the fern, like that one there, is called a frond. The leaf is called a frond. So on the lower surface of the frond, you'll find those swellings that are called sori. A sorus contains spores. That means that this organism reproduces asexually by means of spores. But that is oversimplifying. We are simplifying because we are just starting biology. However, as we continue, we shall actually see another way the bryophytes and the pteridophytes reproduce. But for now, because we are just starting the course, we are saying that two reproduce asexually by means of spores. Okay, then we move on to the spermatophytes. Spermatophytes are seed-bearing plants. Spermatophytes are seed-bearing plants. They are plants that bear seeds. And you know seeds are used for propagation. So these organisms are reproducing by means of seeds. These plants are much bigger. Probably the biggest plant you've ever seen must have been a spermatophyte. The biggest, tallest plant that you've ever seen, it must have been a spermatophyte. And basing on the structure, the body structure, we are saying spermatophytes, just like the pteridophytes, have roots, stems, and leaves. And because of their big structure, huge structure, it means these plants need the vesicular tissues. So we are saying they do have the vesicular tissues. That means they have a xylem, they have a phloem. I'll emphasize, just for those that may have gone off briefly while we talked about the vesicular tissues, we are saying the spermatophytes have a xylem to transport water and salts from the roots to the rest of the parts of the plant. They also have a phloem, or they also have phloem to conduct the manufactured food from the leaves to the rest of the parts of the plant. The spermatophytes are further put into two groups. We have some seed-bearing plants that produce naked seeds. Naked, they're not dressed up, you know, naked. They're not enclosed in any structure. They may be protected by some structure, but they're not totally enclosed. So the spermatophytes are of two categories. We have bryophytes, no, we have spermatophytes that produce naked seeds, naked, as in not dressed up, naked. Those ones are what we call the gymnosperms. So spermatophytes that produce naked seeds, we call them gymnosperms. The word is there. Spermatophytes that produce seeds that are enclosed in a fruit, those ones we call them the angiosperms. So spermatophytes are of two types, gymnosperms and angiosperms. Gymnosperms produce naked seeds. We can also call them cone-bearing plants. Cone is C-O-N-E, cone-bearing plants. Those are the gymnosperms. I know you've seen plants that bear cones, that have cones, things you call cones. We are going to see them and look at examples. Any other plant that you've seen and it has flowers, flowers come in a range of shapes, range of sizes, range of colors. As long as that plant has flowers, no matter the size, no matter the color, no matter the shape, that plant is said to be an angiosperm. So spermatophytes could be angiosperms, flowering. They could be gymnosperms, cone-bearing plants. So we have a plant there. Which plant could that be? The one in the picture there?
An angiosperm.
An angiosperm, because of the flower. Okay, and then which plant could that be?
Gymnosperm. Gymnosperm.
Okay. Which exact name? What could be the name of that plant that you're seeing there?
A
Some
pine.
of us
Pine.
Okay,
Pine.
that is probably pine. So we've already gotten one example of a gymnosperm. Pine is an example of the gymnosperms. There could be very many.
Cypress?
What about cypress? The same thing. It is also a cone-bearing plant. There are also some plants that we call the cycad. The cycads. Those are also examples of the gymnosperms. Give me examples of angiosperms, examples of plants that are angiosperms.
Strawberries.
Strawberries. Yes.
Sunflower.
Yes. Yes, Navidia.
Sunflower.
I didn't get the name there you're giving. There are many examples. Any plant you've seen and it has flowers, just give that one. Okay, someone says the mango, Mungungeyo says the mango, correct. I need examples. If you can't talk, at least you put the answer in the chat. I need to see examples of flowering plants. I need at least 10 examples. We are 28, so I need about 10, at least 10. So far I've got one, the mango.
Pomegranates.
Okay. Pomegranate. The orange. Those are 3: mango, orange, pomegranate.
Strawberries.
Strawberries, that's 4. Good. And the rest, where are we? Some people are not
Tangerine.
active. Tangerine, are they sleeping? Good, those are 5. Sunflower, passion fruit, good. I need 3 more, those are 7 so far you've given me. The lemon plant, good. The apple, good. I need 2 more. Avocado, correct. I need 1 more. Maize. So all those examples you've given are the bean plants are also there. All those ones are flowering plants. Now, to end our lesson, the flowering plants are further grouped into 2. So we have 2. Someone is already giving me the answer there. Yes, Agnes. Nabide Rayana Agnes.
Into
The flower.
class Dicotyledone and class Monocotyledone.
Very good. The flowering plants, that is the angiosperms, are further divided into monocotyledonous plants, see, and dicotyledonous plants. Monocotyledonous and dicotyledonous plants. We are
So we
stopping.
can call them monocots and dicots.
Yes, we can call them monocots and dicots. Monocotyledonous plants, monocots. Dicotyledonous plants, dicots. We are stopping here. We're ending our lesson here. I'm leaving an assignment though. I want us to look for examples of monocots, examples of dicots. So by the time we have our next lesson, you should have, each person should have written down at least 5 monocots, at least 5 dicots, at least. I'm saying at least, that means you can write 20. I've just said at least. I also want you to write for me at least 7 differences. No, let me reduce to 5. You write for me at least 5 differences between between monocots and dicots. Write for me 5 differences between monocots and dicots. That is quite simple. Just writing down the examples, at least 5 for each, writing down the differences, 5 differences. And I prefer that you write your differences in form of a table. When you're writing down the differences, just draw a table, divide it into 2 columns. On one side, you put monocots. On another side, you put dicots. Your differences in table form. I've said at least 5. That means that one. You mute yourself. Mute.
Please mute. We're here to study.
Yeah, we are not here to listen to you sing your poor way of singing. Okay, so make sure you do that so that when we meet next time, when we have our lesson next time, you have that done. 1 question, I'll allow maybe 2 questions, 2 or 3 questions, and then we'll end this session. Anyone with a question, a comment, anything? Okay, nothing. Yes, kusemererwa. Yes,
should we write this in our class of books, the name that you're giving us?
Yes, you can write them. You can write.
Okay.
Yes, Gabriela.
Teacher, I have my final work.
Yes, I didn't get that. Naivale, what did you say?
Teacher, can we find the work on an e-learning platform?
Can you handing in, eh? No, don't hand in. Don't hand in. Don't hand in, but make sure you do the work. We shall discuss it next time. But of course, we shall be moving very fast because you will have taken time to research. So make sure you research. Eh? Okay, so if there are no more queries, bye. Don't forget to sanitize, don't forget to wear the mask, and follow all the SOPs to stay safe. Right? Next lesson.